My daughter booked me a motel for Christmas Eve because, in her words, the house is too full. Then, 2 hours later, she posted photos of the whole family opening presents in the living room I still owned. I was sitting on the edge of a queen bed at the Pine Star Motel, eating vending machine crackers for dinner, when the notification popped up on my phone. Patricia had tagged me. That was the part that almost made me laugh. Not called me. Not invited me back. Tagged me. The first photo showed my grandson holding a new gaming console beside the fireplace I built with my own hands in 1987. The second showed my son-in-law, Greg, wearing my old red Christmas sweater, the one my late wife used to say made me look like a retired mall Santa. The third was a wide shot of everyone around the tree. Everyone except me. The caption said, "First Christmas in our forever home? So blessed. Our forever home. My name is Samuel Whitaker. I'm 72 years old, widowed, retired from the county water department, and that house was not their forever home. It was mine. I bought it with my wife, Ellen, when Patricia was 6 years old. Back then, the roof leaked, the kitchen cabinets were crooked, and the backyard was mostly mud. Ellen and I fixed it one paycheck at a time. I learned drywall because we couldn't afford a contractor. She painted every room twice because she kept changing her mind. We planted the maple tree out front the year Patricia started middle school. That house held 36 Christmas mornings. And on the 37th, my daughter sent me to a motel. Patricia and Greg moved in with me 8 months before that. They said it was temporary. Greg's landscaping business had gone under. Patricia's hours at the dental office had been cut, and they needed just a little breathing room. 3 months, Dad, Patricia told me, crying at my kitchen table. We just need to get back on our feet. I believed her. That's the dangerous thing about being a father. Sometimes you hear your child's voice and forget they're a grown adult with a history of making the same mess twice. I cleared out the guest room for them. I let their 2 teenage boys take the den. I moved my recliner into my bedroom because Greg said the living room needed better flow. Patricia said it would help the boys feel normal. For 8 months, I paid the mortgage, property tax, utilities, internet, groceries, and most of the car insurance because somehow their temporary situation kept stretching. At first they thanked me. Then they rearranged things. Then they started asking before touching my belongings less and less. Then they stopped asking entirely. By December, I had become a guest in my own home. Christmas Eve morning, Patricia found me in the kitchen making coffee. She had that nervous smile she used when she wanted something she knew was wrong. Dad, she said, don't be upset. That is never the start of a good sentence. What happened? She looked toward the living room where Greg was taping a garland to my fireplace. We had to make a little adjustment for tonight. What adjustment? The house is just too full. I waited. She kept going. Greg's parents decided to come after all, and my cousin Rhonda is bringing the girls, and the boys want their friends to stop by later. It's going to be chaotic, and I know how tired you get. I get tired? Dad, you know what I mean. No, I didn't. But I knew what she meant to mean. She set a folded paper on the counter. I booked you a room at the Pine Star. Just for tonight. It'll be quiet. You can come back tomorrow after brunch. I looked at the paper. One night. Senior discount. Room 114. You booked me a motel for Christmas Eve. She exhaled like I was being difficult. It's not like that. Greg walked in then, holding a roll of tape. Sam, come on. Don't make Patricia feel bad. It's one night. I looked at him. In my house. His face changed just a little. Then he said, sometimes family means making room. I remember that line because I had been making room for him for 8 months. I said, and whose room did you make? Patricia's eyes got wet. Dad, please. The boys are excited. Don't ruin Christmas. That was how she got me out. Not with force. With guilt. I packed a small overnight bag. Toothbrush, pajamas, medication, phone charger. I left my own house at 4:15 in the afternoon, while Greg's parents were carrying wine through my front door. His mother gave me a little wave. "Oh, Samuel, heading out?" I said. "Apparently." Nobody stopped me. At the motel, the heater rattled like a toolbox in a pickup bed. The bedspread smelled faintly of bleach and cigarettes, even though the room was non-smoking. I sat there telling myself Patricia was stressed, Greg was thoughtless, Christmas made people stupid. Then I saw the photos. Our forever home. That phrase did something to me. It made everything clear. The next morning, I did not go home for brunch. Instead, I drove to the house and parked down the street. There were still cars in the driveway. I sat there for a minute, watching Greg's father carry a cooler out through my garage. My garage. Then I saw something else. A man in a gray coat standing on the front porch, taking pictures of the exterior. He had a clipboard. I waited until he walked back to his car, then I pulled up beside him. "Can I help you?" I asked. He looked surprised. "Oh, are you Mr. Whitaker?" "I am." His face immediately got professional. "I'm with Northline Mortgage Services. Just doing a preliminary property valuation." "For what?" He glanced at his clipboard. "Refinance inquiry." There it was. The word that changed my Christmas from sad to strategic. "Who requested that?" He checked the form. "Patricia and Gregory Hale. They said they were authorized occupants and future owners." Future owners. I thanked him, took his business card, and drove away before I did anything stupid. I did not go inside. I did not yell. I did not pound on the door and demand answers in front of Greg's parents. I went to a diner, ordered eggs I barely touched, and made 3 calls. The first was to my real estate attorney, Margaret Chin. She had handled the house paperwork after Ellen died. Margaret was younger than me by at least 20 years and had the calmest voice of any person I had ever met. When I explained what happened, she said, "Samuel, do you have any written rental agreement with your daughter?" "No." "Do they pay rent?" "No." "Do they receive mail there?" "Yes." "Then we handle this carefully. Legally, not emotionally." The second call was to the post office to put a hold on my mail and request copies of anything suspicious through the mail tracking service I had signed up for after Ellen died. The third call was to the security company. I had 2 cameras outside, one over the garage and one at the side gate. I had installed them when a neighbor had tools stolen. I rarely checked them. That week, I checked everything. Greg had been meeting people at my house while I was out for doctor appointments and grocery runs. One video showed him walking a man around the side yard. Another showed Patricia standing with a woman holding what looked like a folder from a mortgage company. Then I found the mail. A refinance estimate from Northline Mortgage. A home equity loan flyer marked "Requested information." A letter addressed to Patricia Hale regarding document requirements for property secured lending. They had not just imagined my house as theirs. They were trying to use it. Margaret asked me to bring every document to her office. She spread them across her conference table and shook her head. "They can't refinance property they don't own," she said. "But they may be trying to establish enough misinformation to secure a private loan or pressure you into signing later." I asked, "Can I make them leave?" "Yes. But we do it correctly." She drafted a notice. 30 days to vacate. No more representation of the property as theirs. No mortgage inquiries. No showing the house to lenders, brokers, contractors, or appraisers. No use of my name, signature, credit, or property as collateral. All future communication through the attorney. I signed it. Margaret had it served the next day. Patricia called me crying within an hour. "Dad, how could you do this to us?" I was back at the motel because I wasn't ready to sleep in a house where my daughter had tried to erase me. I said, "You sent me away on Christmas Eve. That was one night. You called my home your forever home. That was just a caption. You contacted mortgage companies." Silence. Then she said, "We were only exploring options." "With my house?" "Dad, you're 72. We thought it made sense to plan ahead. There it was again. Plan ahead. People use that phrase when they want your things before you are done needing them. Greg got on the phone. Sam, this is getting out of hand, I said. I agree. You're really going to put your daughter and grandkids out? I gave you 30 days. You know we have nowhere to go. You had 8 months to save money while I paid for everything. He scoffed. You're being vindictive because of a Facebook post. No, I said. The Facebook post just told me what you were already thinking. He lowered his voice. You think anyone's going to feel sorry for an old man kicking out his family after Christmas? That one was meant to scare me. It didn't. I said. Greg, I don't need sympathy. I have the deed. The next month was ugly. Patricia tried Shane first. She told relatives I had snapped after Christmas. Greg told people I was confused and being manipulated by an attorney. My grandsons barely spoke to me because their parents told them I was making them homeless. That hurt. But Margaret told me to stay quiet until the notice period ended. So I stayed quiet. Except I collected everything. Texts where Patricia admitted she had booked the motel because Dad would be in the way. Emails where Greg told Northline that ownership transition is expected. A message to his father saying, once Sam signs, we can use equity to clear the business debt. That was the real reason. Greg had debts from the failed landscaping business. Not small debts either. He wanted to use my paid-off house as a shovel to dig himself out. On day 29, Patricia came to see me alone. I had moved temporarily into a small rental near the lake that a friend from church owned. It was quiet. 1 bedroom. Ducks outside the window. I slept better there than I expected. Patricia sat at my little kitchen table and cried. I'm your daughter, she said. I know. Mom would hate this. That almost got me. Ellen had loved Patricia fiercely. She would have hated the pain. But she would not have hated the truth. I said, your mother would have asked why you let your husband treat me like an obstacle. Patricia wiped her face. We just needed help. You had help. We needed more. And instead of asking, you sent me to a motel and tried to put my house under your future plans. She looked down. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Then she said, if you just signed something temporary, we could all stay. There it was. Even the tears were a hallway leading back to my signature. I stood up. You need to leave, Patricia. They were out by the end of the week. Not gracefully. Not quietly. But legally. The final payoff came 2 months later. I did not move back into the house. Too many corners felt spoiled. So Margaret helped me set up a proper rental agreement with a property management company. The house was leased to a traveling nurse and her husband for 2 years at a fair market rate. The rent goes directly into an account used for my medical expenses, taxes, insurance, and long-term care fund. In other words, the house Greg tried to use to pay his failed business debt now pays to protect me from ever needing him. Patricia and Greg moved into an apartment across town. I heard from my sister that Greg's father refused to co-sign anything after seeing the documents. Northline closed the inquiry. The private lender backed off. Greg had to sell his truck and some equipment to cover debt. Patricia still says I chose money over family? No. I chose not to let family steal the roof over my head and call it planning. The grandsons eventually came around. The older one, Mason, called me 3 months later. Grandpa, he said, did Mom really make you sleep at a motel on Christmas? I looked out at the lake outside my rental window. Yes. He was quiet. She told us you wanted peace and quiet. I wanted Christmas at home. He came over the next weekend. So did his brother. I made chili. We watched an old movie. Nobody had to pretend anything was perfect. As for Christmas now, I don't host big gatherings anymore. Last year, I spent Christmas Eve in my small lake house rental with my grandsons, a crooked little tree, and Ellen's old cookie recipe. We ate too much, played cards badly, and took one photo. I posted it myself. The caption said, "Home is where no one sends you away." Patricia didn't like it. That's fine. She had her forever home for one Christmas Eve. Then I took forever back.